Well, while we do the pre-show, I'm gonna eat some Sour Patch Kids because
That's fine.
that's pre-show vibes. They're yum. They're still left over from my birthday, believe it or not. But
Welcome back to the pre-show, everyone.
I don't really have anything miscellaneous to discuss for the pre-show. But we have not talked about the Bachelorette or the Bachelor.
Yeah, we haven't.
So, did you watch last week's episode?
Yeah, I did.
So Victoria went home. Thank God. She is so delusional. Like,
I couldn't do it. Like, sometimes I just, in order to watch The Bachelor, you just kind of have to like put your filter away and just like take it as it is. And the villain is always like fun to watch if you let yourself have fun with it and if you don't think too much about it. But just after 4 years of being gaslit by Donald Trump, I was not in the mood to be gaslit by fucking Victoria and watch her gaslight this entire house of people during a pandemic. Like, I just wasn't in the mood for it. She just wasn't a good villain. Like,
no,
she was not likable at all. And I get that that's dumb to say like a likable villain, but you know what I mean if you watch The Bachelor. Yeah, Corinne.
Like Corinne, I think is the best example. She was a likable villain. Like,
and
she
Demi.
Yeah, I liked Demi on the show. I don't really feel her vibe anymore, but I liked her on the show. The thing with Victoria and like MJ and even Kit, I think they tried to like paint Kit in a better light in this episode. And I'm like, I saw you talking shit with Victoria in the other episodes. Like, I know you were her little sidekick. So don't try to sell me that Kit is like this perfect little person. Because I know she isn't. They're just mean. Like, they're not even funny. They're just like mean girls. And there's nothing fun about watching that. Where Corinne was kind of like spiteful and snarky and villainous, but in a way that I don't ever think she came across like just as straight up mean girl as these girls are.
Yeah, I like a villain that lifts themselves up and like doesn't give a fuck about anybody else and is just like, I'm the baddest bitch here. And like Victoria had that part of her, but then it was in combination of like, and all these other whores are like, and that just, no.
The name calling. Anna too. Why are we forgetting about Anna? That she was so mean too. And the thing with the new girl, Brittany, that came in the rumor that was started about her, I'm like, I hate to be this person, but I'm like, I think you guys are all just jealous. And I think that's where like it stemmed from with Anna. Like, it just sounded like she was jealous of this girl back home. Like, maybe something happened but it didn't seem like Brittany even knew who Anna was or like knows her at all. But I think maybe like through the grapevine, Anna heard something. And then on the show, she was like maybe feeling a little like jealous and insecure. And like, it's such a heightened environment. And I'm like, first of all, why do any of you women care? Like, if it was true, like it wasn't true, but if it was, like, would you not be sitting there? And Katie, I'm just imagining if you and I were on The Bachelorette and like or on The Bachelor and a rumor gets started that a girl coming in is a prostitute or like a sex worker. Both of us would be like, can we please talk to her? Because we're intrigued. Like, I would want to hear about it. And also it's like, she's living her life. She's getting that coin. You go to a marketing firm. She goes to a club with like a 50-year-old man one night and gets paid a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
You're both just making your living. So.
Yeah. I like, it's not even the fact that it's like a vicious rumor to be spreading and it could ruin someone's life. Like, I don't even like that narrative. It's just the fact that like they painted it in that light. Like, if it were me, I'd be like, okay, so like, I don't know. And a lot of people know Brittany. Like, I'm pretty sure Meredith knows her, who we had on the pod last week. And a lot of people that I went to school with at Iowa know her because a lot of people that go to Iowa are from Chicago and that's where Brittany is from. And like, it's just fucked up the way that like, honestly, I think Anna knows that she made a mistake and she's probably going to be living with that shit for the rest of her life. Like, people are going to hate on her.
Yeah.
Like, forever now. She's going to be fucked. But
she was self-aware enough to be like, I made a mistake and I'm disappointed in myself. Her limo exit gave me hope for her. Like, I do think that she was aware of what she did, where Victoria like has no clue. Has no self-awareness.
No. Yeah. And like, I think Anna just like kind of what you said, got caught up in the bullshit. And I think personally, if I were on the show, I could definitely also see myself getting caught up in the heightened environment that's created by, what's going on in the show. Even like as I'm watching this, I'm kind of like judging all of them just by like how they're acting during a fucking global pandemic, and they're crying about like fucking digging through hay to find a golden horseshoe. Like, I don't know. I find myself being very like cynical, like more cynical than I normally am watching The Bachelor. But it's just the environment that they're in. It's hard, I think, to like, I'm not making excuses for Anna or anything. I just think the people who painted the whole like sex work equals like she's not here for the right reasons and like she's a bad person, the producers created that narrative. Like they aided in making this thing that like we should all as a society be like, okay, that's not a bad thing anymore. Like, can we please move on from this? But they are not going to be held responsible for that. It's going to be Anna.
They did them so dirty, making them dress up as squirrels. So bad. Like
these group dates are ruthless.
Yeah, that was a really bad one.
Yeah, the farm one was shitty. Like
legitimately. It reminded me of the date on Nick Vile's season when they brought them back to Wisconsin and went on that farm. Do you remember that? And Corinne was like, I'm not doing this. Once again, Corinne. There are girls I think that got caught up in it, like Anna, that I think just the high stress environment. Like I'm sure producers knew going into this, they're like, we can break her. Like she is the one that we can go after and like she will crack. Where Victoria, I think she just went in there being a mean person. Where I think like other people go in there and it comes out more. And I'm also watching this and I'm like, I think we all watch this and be like, we would be Katie. We would be the one being like, girls, like she's gone. Let's stop. Like, no need to talk about it anymore. But would we all? Probably not. Like even me, I'm thinking like if it was only me against like all of those other girls, would I really be the one to be like, can we stop talking about this? I'd probably just sit back and be like, y'all are being petty and I'll just sit here and wait for you to all drone on. But like realistically, would you stand up to all these women that you have to still compete with? So I do think we have to give some of them the benefit of the doubt. I don't like MJ though, and I'm like ready for her to go home.
She's the type of girl that I would be so annoyed with. Also, even like I like Katie and I'm totally like she is for the girls and I'm so about that, but also she's like not completely innocent because that whole Sarah thing that went down, like she was kind of one of the main voices like attacking Sarah until she went to go talk to Sarah, and then Sarah was like, my dad is like dying, and Katie was like, my dad died. And so it's like, you know, I think Katie has the capacity to be like, I was wrong, and like and then after that whole Sarah incident she kind of went forward being like, okay guys, we need to chill the fuck out, and like it looks like she's going to be involved in more drama going forward. But I think her intentions are good as of right now, my view of her. And Chelsea is my favorite. I love her so freaking much.
Chelsea's awesome.
She's so cute. Also Maggie and I love Maggie? Abigail.
I like Abigail. Which one's Maggie?
She's the one that couldn't row her pumpkin and she was just stuck in the water.
God. The one with the cool accent.
Yeah.
Where's she from? Yeah. That's the thing with some of these women. I'm like, why are we not getting anything about these women except for all this stupid drama? And then like next week with Heather showing up, again, we're not going to get more on Maggie, because again, when her little intro package, she got an intro package, didn't she? And I remember being like, I'm interested in her.
Yeah. Also Mari getting sent home.
I just think like there are so many interesting women that we're not getting anything about, just to hear like these few bitchy girls fight. And I'm just
and even the one-on-ones, I'm just kind of like the most recent ones. I mean, I liked Breeze. I thought their connection was really good. Serena P, I thought their connection was really good. And then the new girl, Michelle. But like, that we must not be seeing stuff that's going on, because I didn't catch a vibe with him and Rachel at all. I was shocked when he chose Kit for this one-on-one. I was just like, he seems to have a better vibe with like so many other people. So I don't know.
See, I almost see it as I feel like he's vibing with everyone that I don't know who he likes. So then when he told Rachel that he was falling in love with her, I was like, what?
Yeah. And like sorry. Mari on the first night, he was like, he like had his breath taken away by her when she got out of the car. And then they like never talked again.
Yeah.
And then he sent her home last time. And he's being like so reassuring to all of them. So I'm just like, he can't like keep all of them around this whole time.
Yeah, I feel like he's gonna tell multiple women that he loves them.
That was early for him to say that to Rachel.
I know. I shouldn't say I don't like Rachel. I'm interested to hear how she's going to defend everything that has like come out about her online.
I know. Every time she's on screen, I'm like, fucking bitch.
I know, because it's like I want to hear what she has to say, but also I'm like, you can't defend that stuff. So, and I don't just want to like, you can't really, like, I don't really know how she's going to defend herself because there's really no defense. So,
yeah. And it's like recent stuff. Like, it's not even stuff from that long ago. So, I mean, you and I have talked about before that we're not innocent in the whole like racist actions in the past. Like, we've definitely said things and participated in things that are like not chill, but now after like growing and learning, and like if after this year you're still like dressing as a Native American for Halloween or like wielding around a fucking Confederate flag, like you're just,
I don't know how.
There's no getting out of it at this point. Like, you just are trash.
Or the whole thing with that country singer, like saying the N-word and people.
Yeah.
And so I am friends with a few people on Facebook, which this is why I fucking avoid Facebook. I get on there for my book group and I get off. But it was the top post on my feed. So I saw it and it's this girl that I went to church camp with years ago, and she lives in Oklahoma. And she made this whole entire post defending him. And I was like, unfriending you. I mean, like, she already posts some like pretty crazy stuff. But she's like defending him and being like, why can't we use this word if Black people use this word? And like, how is that okay for them but not okay for us? And I'm like, why do you feel the need to have this word in your vocabulary? And like, why is it even in there in the first place? I don't get why white people are so pressed that they can't use that word. Why does it matter to you? Like, what situation do you feel like you need to use that over any other word? Like,
it's just like quite literally the bare minimum that's being asked of people. Like, wear a fucking piece of cloth over your face, please. Don't say one word, just one word, just like avoid saying it. And like, don't kill people if you're a cop. Just because you're a cop, that doesn't mean you can kill people.
It's really,
and people are like, well, why not? Why? Black people kill each other, so why can't the cops kill them? It's a free country, so why can't I just wear whatever I want out in public? Like, bitch, no. Oh, people suck.
3, 2, 1.
Buckle up.
Because it's going to be a long ride.
It's going to be a wild ride.
No one cares, but we're going to tell you anyways.
This is Popcorn Chats. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm Katie.
And I'm McKay. And
this week we have a new movie that we're discussing. It just came out today. We're recording this on a Friday. You guys are hearing this on Monday. It is the new Sam Levinson movie, Malcolm and Marie, starring Zendaya. Yeah, Zendaya and John David Washington. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this. We were just talking in our visual only pre-show. If you're listening, you can go on YouTube and watch that really quick. But we were just talking about how we finally have all this new content that's falling into our lap a little bit. Like, this time last year, we were struggling a bit. Or not this time last year, but this past year of 2020, there hasn't been a whole lot of new movies being released. It's been few and far between where Michaela and I are covering new movies on this podcast, but whenever we do, we've talked about before that it's like one of our favorite things because we feel like we're part of this big, exciting moment in the film timeline, and anything Zendaya does right now is a big deal. She's kind of the it person in Hollywood right now, and I'm super excited to see where this film ends up with awards season quickly approaching. I loved it. It was a great way to start my day today, to wake up and watch this movie. It's the first film that was concepted and created and filmed during the pandemic, from start to finish, done within that time. So
it's a pandemic movie that's not the pandemic focused. Yeah. I tried watching the lockdown last weekend, I think, and it was just, I had to turn it off. It just wasn't a vibe, and I don't want to watch anything to do with the pandemic right now when I'm living in the pandemic right now. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to watch something to be entertained by something not having to do with that, and this was perfect. Check in quick before we jump in.
Sure.
What's
How
new
are
with you,
you?
Katie?
Oh.
Okay, I'm fine. As you guys may or may not know, I did get an apartment, so I move in next month. So I went furniture shopping last weekend, and I spent a lot of money without having literally anything to show for it because nothing's delivered yet. It's expensive to furnish an apartment, especially all on my own, and I don't have any furniture really, or like any of the big furniture. Like, I don't have a table and chairs, couch, dining room, like none of that I have right now. So, yeah, that's a little expensive and that's not fun, but I'm gonna be bleeding money for a while. So I just kind of have to get used to that. But I've lived like 2 years basically rent free. It just isn't really fun to spend money on grown up things. I was gonna start like an Instagram for books. I like had kind of turned in one of my old accounts into one of those. But then people that like I know kept on being like suggested, and then people that I know started following that account after I started posting on it. And I don't want that. I want literally a space where no one knows me and I can just talk about books, kind of like what I do on TikTok and YouTube. Like, I don't want people in real life following me over there. So I don't know. I gotta figure out if there's something with Instagram, if I can somehow like not have suggested people come over from my other account. But otherwise I'm just gonna burn that idea because I don't want it.
Yeah, I saw that you started your shop.
I did. Oh yeah. So if anyone is wondering, actually that's what I wanted to preface on this episode, because guys, Katie and I know you're all on TikTok. So go on TikTok and follow at Popcorn Chats Pod right now before we even get into the episode. It's down in our description box if you forget, but it's at Popcorn Chats Pod. Go follow it right now. And yeah, I did finally start a shop on Redbubble with some of my art from my TikTok that I make. It's nice because I don't have to do literally anything except upload the pictures, manage what products it goes on. Everything is like made and done by them and distributed and handled, because I didn't want to have to do all of that, and if I would have set up an Etsy I would have had to. So it's nice, like if people buy it, cool. If they don't, cool. Like, it's up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations about that. I meant to text you about
Thank
it,
you.
but I don't know, probably texted you about something else.
Probably random shit otherwise that we're constantly talking about.
Oh my god. It's so funny, like, how we just have this ongoing conversation on TikTok. It's like on multiple things. Like, we have a Twitter DM thread, a TikTok DM thread, then we're like constantly Snapchatting each other, and then like texting about serious stuff, and then we have a group chat that we're texting in. It's just like constantly
Katie and I are always in contact. I don't think we go a day without contacting each other over one form of social media. And pretty much every day it's a multiple form contact.
Yeah.
Anyways, Katie, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Michaela knows I've had my weekly mental breakdown already, so I think we're on the other side of that and on the up and up. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm also same old fucking old.
No, you get that same old, same fucking old.
Same old, same fucking old. Sorry, I say it wrong, I guess.
You do. You get my catchphrase wrong.
I am making a movie, though, with my good friend Kyra. And I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but it's coming in March and we're editing it right now. It's a dance movie and I'm very excited about it. That's like the most new thing that I have going on. I'm trying to finish my script for my movie again.
Yay.
Same old, but really excited to finish it because Jack and I are going to take a day when it's done and read through it together. And I'm really excited for that. Yeah, and then after we do that and I edit after that, then I'm going to send it to Michaela because Jack and Michaela know me better than anybody else and they know this very like vulnerable part of me that this script is about better than anybody else. So, and then I'm going to send it to my good friend filmmaker friend Shelby, who knows my writing voice probably better than anybody else and understands me creatively. So I'm just excited for that part of it. I'm like trudging towards the finish line to send it out to these 3 people, and then after that more people. But I just want it to be done, but I also want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same vibe with like this podcast and the film that I'm making with Kyra. Like, I just want everything to be perfect. And when you're starting out as a filmmaker or any like creative profession, like nothing is perfect. You have to make shit before like that's really just the unfortunate reality. And I have a really hard time coming to terms with that because all of this stuff means a lot to me and I just want everything to be perfect. And my version of perfect also isn't like other people's version of perfect. So it's just hard being a creative girly working a part-time job that I just like, I just have a lot going on, you guys, of course, as usual.
As we know.
Will I ever like have it all together? No.
It wouldn't be on brand.
It wouldn't be Katie if I was just like this like very well put together person. I'm not me without my mental breakdowns. They're kind of like a comfort thing at this point. Like if I don't have one during a week, I'm like, who am I?
You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're on edge because you're like, why are things going well?
I know. And I'm like, what's going to go wrong? What a life that we both live.
But at least it's good that your like movie is almost done. Like I think that's the hardest thing that like you and I have talked about a lot is just like getting the draft, like getting the words on paper. I feel like is the hardest thing because like we edit as we go and you're like not supposed to do that because it's like you're just gonna get hung up on shit over and over again if you're trying to make it perfect the first time around and it's like just not going to be. So the fact that you're like almost done with it after almost like restarting the whole thing. I'm proud.
Very anxious to have it done. Have you had time to work on your book? Do you have a title for yours, by the way?
No, I have no titles for any of them.
I was thinking about that the other day because I was like, she always refers to mine as like the title of it. So I am like, I'm pretty sure she doesn't have a title for hers, but I don't know.
No, I don't have a title for any of I call them by like Lee and Cal's book, which are like the one that like I've put aside a bit, even though like I can't stop thinking about it, but it's like I know just like my writing probably isn't like where it should be for me to like get across in that book. But then even like Walker and Scar's book is like that's what I call it. And then like the next book that I started working on that will be like the next in the series but following 2 different characters, now I'm calling it like Hayden and Carter's book. Like I don't have titles. So no, I don't know. I feel like naming things is hard because I want the title to mean something, but also I don't want it to be like pretentious in any way either. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like names, like titling is just hard to come up with. So I think that'll be like literally the last thing that I ever do for any of these books. We'll be giving them titles.
Totally.
Yeah, I did put it on pause. Right now I'm still jotting down ideas and like making voice recordings when I like think of stuff and adding them to my voice memos app. But like actively writing, I'm not working on that one right now, and I'm doing the first 2 books in that like 4-book series that I have in my mind. I've just been trying to set a goal. This one TikTok person that I follow, he's a writer and he just gives like writing advice. And he's like, set the smallest goal. He's like, set the goal of even writing like a sentence a day. And I started doing that, but then I noticed like I wouldn't stop at a sentence. I'd go on and do like maybe a full scene of dialogue or maybe like a whole page. So now just getting in the habit of writing a sentence a day turns into a lot more.
I know that me personally, I just need to get to the point where other people are reading it and giving me feedback because I'm just so in my head about it and it needs to like get out of my head because it will never get done if it stays in my head because I'm just like some days you and I have talked about before again like this is the best thing ever, no one's doing this, like no one's doing it this good, and then other days I'm like this is garbage, you are a trash person, you're fucking wasting your time and you deserve to be shot and killed and thrown into a lake.
Katie and I either think we are ascending at a godlike level or that we are the bottom of the barrel trash scum. Like there is no in between for Katie and I.
There really is no in between. It's also just the weeks that I live too. Like on a Tuesday, I'm on my knees scrubbing a fucking shitty toilet at my part-time job. And then I'm like talking to two filmmakers like on my podcast another day. You know, there's just no consistency in this like weird period of our lives where we're just like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's just like
It's really keeping us on our toes.
It is, and it's keeping us humble too, you know?
It is.
Small beginnings. And we will remember this when we finally ascend and remain ascended.
We will remember these days where I'm literally sitting on my floor because I'm too lazy to get the chair out of the other room. So I thought it would be better to make myself a little pillow and blanket, like fort down here.
A little nest on the floor.
Basically. Should we finally get into this movie?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm super excited.
Me too. First of all, this movie, I feel like was just the perfect thing, like right up my fucking alley. It is all character driven. It is not plot driven, like whatsoever. It is just like an examination of two characters, which is what I live for. That's all. I love books, like fantasy books. Like these are like very plot based. But then I have this book called Sweet Dandelion, and it is like, people find it slow. It's like a 600-page book, and some people find it slow because it's just like character driven and just like the healing of these two characters. And I live for that, and that was exactly what this was. And it's just everything that I wanted and needed this morning, and I was so here for it.
It is an examination of two characters. However, this dialogue build an entire world around these two characters. Like this, the award show that took place before this, the characters like that they're talking about, Taylor, it's all a part of this film. Like it's a very real part of this film that the dialogue creates, even though we don't see it. Like I see it, I feel it. It's like I was there because of this dialogue and because of the performance delivered by these two actors. They build this entire world around them and this entire situation around them, so it doesn't feel like it's just the two of them. And I think going into this project, that was like probably the most colossal challenge that they had to tackle. And the making of the two Euphoria episodes, which again, if you guys don't know, the cinematographer Sam Levinson, Zendaya, a lot of the 22-person crew that worked on this also worked on the two Euphoria episodes. So there's similarities between the two Euphoria episodes in this film. Probably one of their main challenges, I'm just assuming. How do we make this seem larger than two people? How do we make this dynamic and keep audiences intrigued? And how do we make people forget that they're literally just watching two people in the same place talking about the same thing almost 2 hours? They achieved it in this and in that first Euphoria episode with Zendaya and Ali, and the second episode of Euphoria we talked about. We have episodes about both of them. Go listen. The second one's a little bit more dynamic, but still the same idea, like
Concept.
very limited cast and crew and content to work with. But
the crew that did the Euphoria and this, you guys, you're really doing the most for us right now, and I'm just thank you. And Sam Levinson too does such a great job of doing so much with very little. Like when you only have this house to work with. I said it in our Euphoria episode for both of them. Jules's episode didn't feel like it might have, like it could come across as trapped as Zendaya's was, because for Hunter Schafer's episode we had like a couple of different settings that we were working in, but for Rue's episode, Zendaya's episode, they are only in a diner this whole time. So it's very similar to this where they are only in this house, but you're constantly moving through room to room. You're stepping outside on the patio. You never once feel trapped in this house, which I think is probably an underrated moment or an underrated aspect of this film, because I have watched movies, like I brought it up before, The Mountain Between Us. That movie, I felt so stuck in that plane for like 45 minutes, and I was just like, please, like I'm going to turn off this movie if you don't move it. And I never once felt that way in this. I was like, you could stay in this house for another hour and I wouldn't care because it feels dynamic.
I just wanted to say that they did call our asses out a little bit, and I'm not mad about it. I mean, there were a lot of times that this movie made me feel attacked. But there were also a lot of times where I felt seen in this movie. It made me feel super vulnerable, especially, I mean, we can get into into this more later, but that scene towards the end with Zendaya and the knife, she made me feel naked in that scene. Like, she stripped me to my core and broke me down and just like spit in my face, basically. Like, that's how she made me feel with that. And that's how a lot of like this movie made me feel. It was all like building up to just degrading me in the like worst way possible, but also building me up and making me feel validated in a way. And this all just sounds so stupid, guys. Just don't even listen to me. But what I'm trying to get at is they call out white girls who talk about film.
That's us.
And not even like white girls who talk about film, but white girls who like talk about the film the way that Michaela and I do, which is like, it's brilliant, so awesome, and these creators of color are saying something and blah blah blah. Like, but again, I wasn't mad about it and I appreciated it.
Because it's an honest call out. Like, we can't deny it. It's just, it is what it is. And also, we have those episodes on the pod where we do sound where we try to sound, I'm going to say try, because I think I listen back to these episodes and I'm like, I sound so stupid. I'm like, I don't know why anyone likes listening to me. Or even editing my reading vlogs for YouTube, I'm like, finish a fucking sentence. I stop and start like 5 sentences before I get a full one out. We have episodes where we try to like be little film critics, but then we have like our drunk Disney episodes or like our cringe series where we're more just like shooting the shit about movies. And I feel like at least you and I are both self-aware enough to know that it's like, when they called us out, we're like, yeah, I mean, we can't really argue against that. Like, there's literally episodes of proof of us doing that. I just think calling out film critics in general was interesting in this, but then also the white girlies, because that's you and I. The idea of your art being out there for critique is a really big part of this film that I want to get into more. Yeah, we got called out and I was fine with it because it was all right. It was all facts.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like defensive about it at all.
No.
I felt like I resonated with it, and I think this film calls out film critics, it calls out Hollywood. It's very meta, like talking about the way that the direction that film is going, and like the conversations about authenticity and like meaning behind the authorship of a film and everything. It just gets so deep into that stuff and really makes you think. And it's also not pretentious, and this film really isn't like saying anything definitively. Like, white film critics are all on this self-serving power trip. I think it said that like people need to take a step back, and being woke, in quotes I'm saying, is often very self-serving. And I think like Michaela and I can both acknowledge that like talking about certain topics that we've talked about is not just like this selfless act of like uplifting marginalized communities. And that's like something that all we can do is acknowledge and like work on it and still continue to uplift those communities in the best way that we can, but also like educate ourselves in ways to like be better about it. I don't know.
And I think like as critics, not even lumping Katie and I into that, but just like critics are always looking for deeper meaning in things. And like I do find that Katie and I are often looking in certain films, we are specifically like Jordan Peele films. Katie and I are constantly looking, like in Us and Antebellum. Even though Antebellum isn't Jordan Peele, but it's his production company, wasn't it?
Yep.
That like those, we are purposely looking for deeper meanings and like hidden meanings and things, because that's those films. Where there are other things like this movie, I feel like even people could read into it more than what they're trying to do to make it be like a little, to skew it in the way that they want it to be. While we try our best to uplift voices, like we know that we're not perfect in the way that we do that. And I think all this film is saying is like, just, I mean, you know that you're doing it. And I mean, all you can do is be open to criticism and like learning from that. I enjoyed his rant about when was it Variety? Is that who she wrote for? The white girl from Variety or whatever.
The LA Times.
The LA Times. It was enjoyable. Yeah. This whole film was enjoyable. So we do standout star and standout scene.
Sure. I don't know if I really have like a definitive
Oh, okay.
I don't have like a one person, because whose movie is this? Like there's two people to choose from, and I don't think it's either of theirs, honestly. Like
It's very equal.
just when you think it's his, it's hers. And then just
Mhm.
when you think it's hers, he steals it right back. And this combo between the two of them, John David Washington and Zendaya, is immaculate. And I did not see it coming at all. Their dynamic is so meta, which again sounds dumb, guys, I'm sorry, but they take on these characters in their performance, like this argument about like sharing the spotlight. Kind of their acting dynamic is the character dynamic too, jabbing these punches at each other and like knowing each other so well that they know exactly what to say to rip the other person down. Literally, just when you think one of them has won the argument, the other one comes right back with like an even more vicious thing. And that's exactly how this, like, their performances read too. It's like, just when I'm like, fuck, Zendaya is just this goddess walking among us. She is beyond what anyone else is doing right now. John David Washington comes right back in, like, delivering a heightened performance. I don't want to, like, steal the thunder in this conversation, but I just think they clearly didn't shoot this film, like, in a linear way, but the way that their performances progress seems linear, where they're, like, constantly one-upping each other. Like, how do you do that, you know, when you're not shooting a film from point A to point B?
I agree. I don't think like one was better than the other. I do think it was so equally balanced, both in the writing in terms of like the depth given to both of the characters, which is often rare, but then also just in the performance too. Like they're both just giving it everything, and it was amazing. Every single fight felt so equally matched, and again, like you said, just when you think that one of them won and you're like, I'm on your side now. Well, not really. I never really felt like strongly on one or the other sides, but I was like, wow, what a really horrible thing for them to do. Then the other one comes in and is like, I did that because you did this. And then I'm like, oh, that's more context. Now I'm like, oh, okay, first shady person. Like, you're just constantly going back and forth and things are being revealed about the other person. Every single back and forth moment had a purpose. It was never just wasted dialogue. Everything was adding a new element to this fight. And that knife scene, like that you had mentioned, we're gonna have to get into that knife scene because that was astounding. My jaw was on the floor. So good. But yeah, I think both of them were fantastic. I mean, obviously, anyone who listens to this podcast knows that Katie and I both love Zendaya. And speaking of Evelyn Hugo, I do not want to see the day that the press starts to turn on Zendaya for no reason. I don't want it. Don't do it. In John David Washington, I think the only thing that I have ever seen him in was BlacKkKlansman, which I love that movie, and I thought he was fantastic in it. So for this to be the follow-up thing that I see after that, I'm just like, this dude is awesome, because I haven't seen him have like a dull moment. It was a great follow-up for me for him.
I could tell too that like with COVID and quarantine and everything, like these two actors were fucking ready to go and give it their all. Like it's like they were being held back and like just fucking dragging whoever was holding them back, like ready to jump the gun and get going with their craft. And holy shit, did that read on camera. Like I believed every second. There was not 1 minute of it that I wasn't totally and completely immersed in this world. And you start the movie with like one view of both of them as individuals and this relationship, and that view evolves, and like it's like you're watching the entire movie of their relationship play out in just this one conversation where there's like new layers and like how they met. Clearly Sam Levinson had the entire story of Malcolm and Marie and just condensed it all into one conversation and gave us as an audience that full picture of like a full production of maybe not in quarantine. Like he was able to take that entire story that could be a complete movie in itself outside of their home and just put it all in one thing and still deliver the same story.
Incredible. Standout scene. Did you narrow it down to one? Do you have one?
Yeah, it's like a
Okay.
moment. Why don't you go
Okay.
first for this one?
Oh, now this is not like a scene. It's more just like a part of this, which I texted Katie at this point. I'm just gonna call it the mac and cheese fight, but it's not when she's making the mac and cheese, but it's when Malcolm sits down and starts eating it, and he like flips his tie over the shoulder, and he's like really aggressively digging into the mac and cheese, and he's just antagonizing Marie across the house and yelling at her and calling your girlfriend genuinely unstable is not the move.
No.
It's not nice and it's not smart. That whole fight of him where he's eating the mac and cheese, then Marie comes in and they're both yelling and she's like, "Why are we fighting while you're just eating mac and cheese?" And it was just such a real life moment that you could just see this playing out, or you could just picture yourself having a fight with a partner while one of you is eating. I don't know. It was just something, there were so many great scenes in this movie, and like, is this the most stellar scene of them all? No, but it was definitely a standout for me. And it,
Mm-hmm.
like, even thinking back on the movie, it's like the knife scene and the mac and cheese fight. Like, that's what I picture still.
Yeah, well, it kind of like starts the momentum of how the rest of the film goes too,
Mhm.
like where they're yelling at each other and moving in this circular motion. Didn't necessarily have like a scene, but a moment that kind of like connects the whole film together for me was at the beginning of the film. We're kind of outside of the home and
Mhm.
the camera is like moving back and forth and kind of going in this circular motion, and it's right before they start fighting, and she goes to start making the mac and cheese. He says, "Well, you don't work in film." And she says, "You're right, I don't." And then we cut to the mac and cheese, and it's like this hard cut, and we're in the house. So to me, I was like, that line means something, because we go from outside the house to inside the house, and we're like no longer hearing their voices muffled. We're like right in the house with them. Towards the end of the film, like she kind of makes him think that they're gonna have sex, and she's like, he goes to go to the bathroom, and he's like ready to go. He comes back, and she's crying. She's like, "Why didn't you cast me?" And it immediately took me back to that line of like, "You don't work in film," and her saying, "No, I don't." And it immediately carried this like heavier weight, and like her issues with Taylor, the actress who played the leading role in Malcolm's movie, and it just like carries so much weight, because now we know she gave herself away in order for him to make this film and got nothing in return, and he didn't fight for her, and she just wants to be fought for, and men don't always realize everything that you give them, because they're so like rooted in their own reality. And so much in this film, I felt like Malcolm's living in one reality that's very somewhat logic based, and Marie is living in a different reality that is very emotion based, and I could definitely relate to that with my own relationship. It's not necessarily a scene, but it's just a moment and more like dialogue, and that moment of dialogue that kind of connected the beginning of the film to the conclusion of the film really perfect.
I loved that beginning of the movie when then she's standing outside smoking and you're like kind of with her, and then you're seeing him just like circle. He's ranting about like everyone politicizing his movie, even though he's like, why can't I just make a movie about this story that I want to make without everyone making it into like a race topic or something. Every ramble was good. Like when we're talking about like rants or rambling, like that's really what a lot of this is, but I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like every single rant is highly entertaining and also just like, damn, like you're right.
Yeah, the cinematography is like awesome, because Marcel Rev, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, probably not, but sorry, he did Euphoria too, and I just love everything about the composition of this film. The intro with like the still shot of their house and like the credits rolling. I love like the tension that's established right away with the distance between them, and like the movement that you were just talking about, and some of the slow dolly shots through the hallway, the slow motion of her getting ready for bed and him like throwing punches at the air outside. I love so many like frames within a frame too, like the shot at the end through the window. I really thought the cinematography was one of the standout things about this.
And I loved the black and white aesthetic of it too. But I just really like this because it made you focus more on the characters and the story itself rather than focusing on like color and set design. It was more just about the like texture of things almost that made it more appealing.
Yeah, and like the music made it feel more old-fashioned, even though this takes place in present day, like because they have cell phones and everything, and they're talking about like Twitter and emojis and whatever, and like very modern things, and modern directors like Barry Jenkins and Spike Lee and everything were dealing with the same relationship problems that we used to deal with. Like this could be a fight happening in any moment in human history between any couple. That's what the black and white and like the old style music and kind of the old Hollywood direction style and cinematography style kind of did for me.
I just want to call out this one criticism that I did see online that I saw other people like calling out. They weren't like joining in on it, but the age gap. Did you read about that at all, Katie, about people saying that like the age gap was weird?
I didn't read about it. I kind of just thought about it. I don't necessarily know what the age gap is, but I picked up on that she's probably a lot younger than him.
Wait, so I'm curious then. What do you think, before I get into the age gap, what did you think about the age gap? Because Zendaya is our age. I think she's 23. And I want to say John David Washington is 36. He is 36. So a 13-year age difference.
I would just say that it's definitely not unheard of in Hollywood. It happens all the time. Jennifer Lawrence, we've talked about before, and Bradley Cooper, that's like a pairing that has a significant age gap. I don't know. If you think about the men in the industry right now that are 24 years old, I don't think many of them have the emotional gravitas to go up against Zendaya.
No.
And that's really all I have to say about that.
I'm not like the best person, I guess, to be judging if an age gap is right or wrong because I'm a big fan of age gap. Like, I am so desensitized to age gaps that, like, what does it matter to me is kind of what I think. I mean, I read a lot of books that have significant age gaps in them, and I'm just like, yeah. But I don't care about this. I love an age gap, and no one said anything when Margot Robbie and Leo did Wolf of Wall Street, and she was 23 at the time, and he was 38. You didn't hear anything about their age gap, so I don't want to hear anything about Zendaya and John David Washington's age gap. What does it matter? The character is supposed to be younger than him anyways, so in this, what do you want? Women are constantly casted older and men are constantly casted younger. So like, why does it matter that in this circumstance that they have this 13-year age gap or 12-year age gap? I literally do not care about it, and I don't even think that's a criticism of this movie. Like, if you're mad about that, find something else to be mad about because I just think it's dumb.
If it could be inappropriate if she was younger than 18, but she's not. And
yeah, if she was underage, that's a completely different argument. But she is 24, he's 36.
It's a maybe a touchy subject, but again, I don't really think so. Like in this case, like Michaela said, women are so often cast as like older than they are or younger, or it's just like weird. So at least in this, like they're actually playing their ages, and like it's mentioned that he is older than her, and they're not trying to pass it off as them being the same age. I stand by what I said. I don't think that there was a dude in Hollywood when Jennifer Lawrence was like in the heat of her prime career that could go up toe-to-toe with her like Bradley Cooper did, and I feel the same way about this pairing. I don't think that there's a man in Hollywood age 24 to 27 or whatever that is capable to do what he's doing with Zendaya in this film. And no offense to me, but I do feel that way.
To me, this is not a personal attack at you. It's just saying. Speaking of Jennifer Lawrence real quick, when watching this, I was like, are Zendaya and Sam Levinson the new Jennifer Lawrence and David O. Russell? Because this combo, we're seeing it everywhere. It is working. Zendaya is doing some of her best roles with him, and it's very reminiscent of Jennifer Lawrence working with David O. Russell.
Me too. I'd be lying if I didn't think the same thing. Sam Levinson is super dope in the way he's allowing Zendaya to be not just an actress in this. Like, he's giving her creative input and insight and kind of allowing her to become this incredible film mogul during this time of COVID. And I'm sure beyond COVID, and like same with what he did with Hunter Schafer in Jules's episode, where he is using his privilege as like a straight white male filmmaker to give voice and creative opportunities to young women of color and trans women. Like, I applaud him, and I think him and Zendaya as a pair will only bring good to the world, I hope.
I feel like this is going to be something that if you ever see like the two of them doing a project together, we're going to want to see it. They're just gaining that reputation of working so well together.
Well, and Zendaya's just becoming, like we said, that actress that is the it girl in Hollywood right now. Kind of like how Jennifer Lawrence was, kind of how Saoirse Ronan has been the past couple years. Like, anything that she's in, it's going to the award shows, and it's just fun to watch, honestly, and fun to be a part of the conversation about it, and fun to witness and just kind of like be in awe of this person. I have no bad things to say about Zendaya, and I don't think I ever will.
It would take something radical for me to like change my mind on her. And something that this kind of reminded me of too, this fight between Malcolm and Marie and this relationship of just how you're not really on one side or the other. You see kind of both perspectives. It did remind me a lot of Rue and Jules, and how we talked about in our Euphoria episodes that we saw very much a one-sided perspective of it during the season with Rue of her relationship with Jules, but by giving Jules her own episode, they really gave Jules's voice in this relationship so much depth, and it really added to Rue's side where it made it much more of like a three-dimensional relationship. And I feel like this did a good job too of like really giving both sides the opportunity to speak their mind and have the viewer be in on the fight and on both sides rather than getting like a tainted perspective from one or the other.
Totally. Yeah. And it's such a weird experience being so close to this argument and to this relationship where they're going back and forth, because it's like kind of what you said before, where 1 minute you're like, okay, I more see what he's saying, and like she's kind of shady and, you know, she's in the wrong, and then Zendaya has her moment to speak, and then you're like, he's a dick, you know, she's more in the right. And just, I like this, what Sam Levinson does and what Zendaya does and what Hunter Schafer did with her episode of Euphoria, of just showing like there is no black and white in relationships and human relationships. And I just think it's so, not to be like stupid, but authentic to real human relationships.
The whole critics discussion, like let's take like the white people out of it, of being like white people always trying to politicize anything that a black person creates and making it something that they maybe are not intending it to be. But just the whole critic argument, I think, because you and I in this podcast, we are like critiquing movies, even though we're just trying to talk about them, and we've said multiple times we're not critics, we're enthusiasts, but we are critiquing movies. There is that side of doing it, but then there's also the creative side of both of us, that at one point or another we are going to have our creative body of work out into the world, hopefully for other people to be looking at, and you have to be ready to give over that control and know that like once your art is out there, it is completely up for interpretation by anyone else, and critics are fully allowed to say what they think of your art, and you can't influence them anymore. Once it's out there, that's completely out of your hands. In some parts, I'm like, Malcolm, you got to get over it. Your movie's out there. People are going to say stuff about it. It's not really up to you anymore. Like you made it, but it's out of your hands. But then on the other side, I get it. So like I get that from the critic's point of view of being like, you created this is our job now to like talk about it. So I don't know what you're getting at. But then I get it from his side of being like, these people aren't getting it, or they're misinterpreting things, or like they get up on their high horse about things, and this is what I really intended. So I don't know if you felt that same way of seeing it from both sides or not, even from like a critic creator standpoint.
No, I definitely did. I think the whole conversation about authenticity, again, hard to make like a definitive statement about it, because I think the way that the Hollywood conversation is moving and like the film conversation is moving, there's like this desire for things to be authentic and this call for things to be for things to be authentic, but then it's like, does anybody really know what that means? Because we keep slinging this word authentic around. We talked about in our happiest season episode where we want queer actors to be playing queer characters because they've lived this experience, so they'll bring an authentic voice to the role. But then does that mean everybody has to be like out and say that they're gay and then play? Like, it's a very weird fine line to be walking.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're gonna demand, like, everybody's really upset about James Corden being nominated for his role as the gay character in The Prom. I'm not a fan of James Corden, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it because I already didn't really like him that much, and I thought his performance in this was very stereotypical. Like, he's being a very flamboyant, kind of like what a straight person thinks a gay person should be like, and it's just like, whatever, bro. I hope you had fun doing that, because people actually have to like live life as a gay person, and you just got to like do the fun part of it and like talk in a Valley Girl accent and strut your stuff and be all sassy and everything. But then there's people who are fucking dying because they're gay, and you will never have to deal with that. I digress. There is this like call for things to be authentic. I've been on, like Michaela said, the critical end of it, and having to like talk about films, try to have a discussion about what the intention was behind the making of the film and the meaning of the film, and like where the author of the film was coming from. In this case, Sam Levinson has experience with filmmaking and with drug addiction, so like he has that authentic lens, but he's white, so he can't bring that authenticity to these two characters. Because I've also been on the receiving end of things where I've had my authenticity questioned before. Like, I wrote something once about a character who was like functioning on drugs and alcohol, and somebody was like, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, you don't know me.
And it's not your responsibility to then be like, actually that's none of your business.
Right. Like, so it's an uncomfortable position to be in. Like, if you're writing something about queer people, but you're not necessarily like, you've never definitively said, I'm queer or I'm whatever.
That is like, where is it? What's her name? That's why I can't think of it and I want to grab it. Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. Becky Albertalli, the author of this book. So she got so much hate for writing a book as a white woman. Although Simon's white, but I think it was people perceived her as being this white, cis, straight woman writing about a gay kid. And people literally bullied her into coming out. And she's like, actually, I felt really connected to this book, and I felt a lot of the things that Simon went through in this book. And like, she literally got bullied into coming out because people were like, you can't write that because you're not gay. And she's like, actually, I don't know what she said her sexuality was. This was a few years ago. I didn't find out about it until just recently. And I was just like, what the hell, people? Like, that's none of your business. Like, yes, you want an authentic voice to certain things, and like, you don't want people's voices drowning out the people who should actually be speaking on things. Like, a lot of times Katie and I are like, we don't know if we're the right people to be speaking on this. We put that out there. But for then people to hate someone for creating something when they're trying to give a voice to a marginalized group or something, and then force them into like showing their hand, it's just like, not everything is everyone's business. That person had no business telling you that you have no clue, or that it's obvious that you didn't know, because it's none of their business what you do. No one had any business telling Becky Albertalli that she couldn't tell that story because they thought she was straight. I don't know. And I remember after our happiest season episode, because we did talk about like gay actors playing gay characters, and Kristen Stewart did an interview, and she was like, we need to be careful about that though, because then she's like, so then can I not play a straight character? And I was like, oh shit, like on the other end of that, then you don't want to make it that queer people can't play straight characters. With Hunter Schafer's character, Jules, I wouldn't want to see a straight person playing a trans woman.
Yeah, but it's happened so many times, like Eddie Redmayne playing that character.
And
the Danish girl, yeah. And it's happened before, and like, it's uncomfortable, but it's a fine line to walk. Like, it's really hard to make a definitive statement and like enforce these like unspoken rules. Being put in that position where you have to defend yourself and be like, actually, this is coming from an authentic lens because I have actually functioned on like a high amount of alcohol and drugs before. You know, it's like I didn't want to say that in front of like a group of people that were critiquing my art. So to have your authenticity questioned, you know, like if James Corden is not completely straight or whatever, and now he feels like he has to come out, I think it's a little bit different because he's stated that he's straight before and he has a wife, and like he's come out saying that he is not gay.
Yeah.
So
it's not really up for interpretation. Like he's made statements about it.
Gay actors playing straight characters, you know, there's no part of the experience that they're like
lacking.
Yeah, everybody has had to live this straight experience because straight is the default. Like a lot of gay people have had to play a straight character for their entire lives until they came out. So it's different, you know, like there's nothing
to being straight that's like so unique.
There's like no straight part of the straight experience that's like lost on somebody who isn't straight. So like when straight actors are playing a gay character, and Malcolm even says something about this, like, why can't I just write about a life that I haven't lived and write about that person's life and how I think it would be? And like, yeah, but also no. Like, it's just, there's something weird about that. Like, yeah, why can't you? But also, why would you?
Yeah, but then if you want to create something and if you want to be more inclusive of other stories, then I'm thinking, so for me as a white person, do I want to always write white characters in everything that I do? No. But then also, am I an authentic voice for for people of color or like anyone in the queer community? No, I'm not an authentic voice for those. Does that mean then that I don't want to have any characters like that? No, but also that would mean that it's a fine line then writing them and making sure that they're three-dimensional and they're not stereotypical and that respect is taken in those steps, and then that you put it through like sensitivity readers, and there are things that you have to do. There's just no right answer for it. Like, at least that I see, because if you want more diversity, but like you're a white creator, like you need to think a lot about it. You can't like just throw them in there and make light of anything. So I agree with John David Washington or Malcolm in that moment of being like, he should be able to. You also shouldn't just take that lightly either. And like, maybe I'm wrong in saying that. And like, if I am, please correct me. Like, I just think it's hard when, especially for Katie and I on this podcast, that whatever we say is going to be out there. It's cemented then on the internet. And not that we ever really have like hot takes, but I think just anything, like, you can't change your opinion, or like you can change your opinion, but your opinion is out there at one point. So even if you do change it down the road, like, people could just hear it at this point. I think there's gray area in literally everything, so it's really hard to make a definitive statement on anything.
You guys know that this is more Michaela and I like having a conversation, and we are always actively trying to be a better person than we were the day before and like learning. So I hope you all know that like our DMs are open. If you feel the need to critique us on something that we've said, we want to learn. We want to be better if we can be, you know. So like, feel free to, you know, we're not on here being like, we know everything, and clearly we have no fucking idea what we're talking about.
We're not the brightest. And we've never claimed that we're the brightest. We're, like Katie said, we're just trying to have a conversation. And we are not God's word. So never take us as that.
To wrap up this whole conversation about authenticity and like the way that Hollywood is shifting right now, I think we, like, both sides of the spectrum need to be careful with what standards we're holding ourselves to. White creators now are in a position where it's not like we're being kicked out of the space and being like, now it's Black people's turn, or now it's gay people's turn to like write all the stories, and you can't write any of them. All you can write about is your own white, cis, straight experience. I don't think that's the case. It's just people are asking for a very small amount of effort to be put in to making sure that if you are going to incorporate people of color into your stories, which you should, and gay people into your stories, which you should, make sure that you are getting authentic input from people. And Sam Levinson, he's not perfect, but he is one of the white, straight, male creators in the space right now, making an effort to ensure that the things he's putting out there is not just a white, straight man's take on what the trans experience might be, or what the Black experience might be, or what the female experience might be even. He is like making an effort to ensure that there is some level of authenticity. It's not complete. There's no way for it to be perfect, but he's trying.
And it's your responsibility to be doing that.
It's hard to like transition out of that part of the conversation, but I did just want to mention another line that stuck out to me when she said, "Just don't take me for granted," and he says, "I don't," and she says, "You did." Do you know what I'm talking about?
Past tense.
Yeah, she's like, "Just don't take me for granted." And he's like, "I don't." And she's like, "But you fucking did." Like, that is just like, again, such a palpable male and female dynamic. And I can't speak for every male and female relationship, but I'm currently in one, and I have been for quite some time. And that line just really resonated with me. I don't want to like get too personal about my own relationship because I like to keep that part of my life somewhat private on the pod. But when you feel something in your heart and you're like, I want it to be this way, and the person you're with is like, okay, it is this way, and you're like, but it hasn't been. You can tell like when their image of you is like not what you want it to be. And so you can't really ask for what you want or need. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but just as a person, okay, like as a person in a relationship, a lot of the things that were being brought up in this argument, not everything obviously, but just a lot of like the dynamic of it and more what the meaning behind the things that they were saying really resonated with me. And that line in particular, Malcolm was just trying to be like reassuring to her, but the damage was already done. And she's just like, I just want you to acknowledge. And it took an entire film for him to say, I'm sorry, thank you.
See, so I am not someone that is in a relationship. We know this. But there were some, and like, I'm not going to get into specifics of it, but there were things that Malcolm brought up about Marie that he like throws into her face. And then she's like, that was a fear of mine. And like, and she expressed to him, she's like, I regret telling you things, or like, I regret that I opened up to you. And I was just like, oh shit. 'Cause that is like a very big fear of like, I think of anyone to open up to someone else and then have them throw something back in your face. Some of the stuff that Marie was talking about, I was just like, oh my God, I was like, girl, I'm right there with you. Like some of that hit. And it was just, I think anyone watching this, even if you're not like a creative person or a film critic, like there are things that you could pull from, even if you've just had a relationship or if you've had any sort of experience along the same lines as Malcolm or Marie's, that you can pull from and like can hit on it. Like I feel like thinking of where people in my life, I feel like pretty much everyone that would watch this could see something that they could relate to in this film. And I think that's powerful.
I totally agree with you with what you're saying about like that fear of opening up to somebody. And like she has the negative effect of like opening up to him, to seeing like him and this other woman tell her story. And like she feels like they stole it from her and didn't even say thank you or acknowledge her or even admit that like they stole it from her. And then for him to be like, it's not just you, like I fuck other people and like blah blah blah, like I've had people before you and you're not the first broken person that I've like been with. It's just that fear too of like, what the longer you're in a relationship with somebody and like the more vulnerable you are, the more they have to hurt. Yeah, like the more that they can say, and they know exactly what to say to each other to fucking destroy each other. And you see it, like you see them internalizing it and just thinking about what they're gonna say back. Like her in that bathtub, it's like she's being broken, but also just like thinking about what she's about to say to him next. And like him out in that field right before the bathtub scene, like I was like, oh, she fucking broke that man. But he comes right back in with like, bitch, let me tell you
I know.
Like, I know this about you, and like, you know, it's just good.
It's
But
like they needed to recharge their batteries, and then they were like ready to go again.
Ready
It was
to go.
wild.
This whole time, like, he's been observing her and taking her in and like using her life as material for his art, all for it to be something that she deems as like mediocre. That hurts him because he thought like he knew her better than anybody else, enough to like make this work of art about her.
Yeah.
But then she has like been subtly observing him and like knows him almost better than he knows her. And like when you love someone so much and you know them so well, you know everything about them, and one of those things that you know is like exactly what can destroy them and like really, really hurt them. And I think that's why some breakups are so horrible, is because when you're angry and like in the heat of the moment, you say things that are like irreparable, you know?
Yeah. And it's scary then to know that like those things can't be taken back. Like if I was Marie and he says some like, I mean, he says wild shit to her this whole movie, but there was one scene, Katie, you'll know what scene I'm talking about, that he brought something up, and then when she came back, I'm like, if I was Marie, I would have, like, you literally couldn't come back from that. I would never be able to look at him the same way as she did. Granted, they were going back and forth all night. She seemed to let it roll off her back eventually. But that's like scary to think about, that someone that you love the most could just bring that up. Or bring certain things up about you and like completely throw something back in your face. They had no boundaries with where they took their fight. And while it's entertaining, it's also like, oh shit, that is scary.
Well, and she does say like, how am I ever going to see you the same way again after you talked about like the heart-shaped bathtub and Kiki and whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder if they...
Well, I loved how at the end, he's like, we're already going to get married and divorced multiple times, so why don't we start now? I was like, okay, well, at least you guys are... The thing is that they're aware of how I don't want to say toxic. What is it, toxic? I don't know. I feel like toxic gets thrown around a lot, too. Like, that seems to be, like, a hot button word right now.
Yeah.
As well. But, we'll just say that they're explosive together. That at least they're realistic about that. They're not like, we're going to be happily ever after now. They're like, we're probably going to get married and divorced a few times.
Yeah, I think there's just, like, certain types of relationships where, and this is one of them with Malcolm and Marie, where, like, they just love each other so much, and there's like no one else that they love as much as each other, but they also hate each other. And I think that's just the byproduct of knowing someone so well, and this like very delicate observance of somebody where you just like take in everything that this person is. It's hard not to like, you know yourself. Like the only person you know better is yourself, and most people despise and love themselves. Like Michaela and I have talked about, we like hate ourselves with an intense burning passion, but also think that we're like God's gift to man. That can be like a byproduct of relationships too, when you get to know somebody so completely and wholly, like you love them and hate them.
Hate and love go hand in hand.
That is the line of the song at the end. Did you hear that? Where it's like love and hate are something, like the song that plays at the end as the credits are rolling.
No.
It was like love and hate are so like close to each other or something.
No, but that's why like the enemies to lovers trope works so well, because the jump from hating to loving, it's actually very linear. Like it does work out very well. The knife scene.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about that quick, because like I said earlier, my jaw was on the floor watching that scene. It was insane. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
She played me. She played me like a fucking violin.
She played me like she played Malcolm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really like articulate my feelings, but the best way I could describe it is like she made me feel naked, like I said before. She made me fall in love with her and like hate her fucking guts in a 1 minute time frame. No actress has really ever made me feel the way she made me feel in that scene. My stomach was in my chest. I don't know what she was about to do. And then I didn't think that she was acting, but she was acting while acting.
And then when he was like, why didn't you do that in the audition? It brought such a lightness after that where I was like, oh my God. And then when he said that, it made me giggle. They're very different scenes, but I think the way that they captured my attention was very similar. It was this scene to then also the scene in Euphoria when Rue is banging on Fez's door and begging him for drugs. Very different circumstances, very different moments, but they had the same kind of energy that I couldn't peel my eyes away from the screen. Like, I was so invested, and Zendaya was so in that moment. It was like watching, this is gonna sound stupid, but it was like watching something magical.
Kind of along the same lines of what you're saying, a lot of Sam Levinson's characters are just fully unrestrained and very unpredictable Euphoria character. Like, you just have no idea what they're about to do, and it makes for great TV because it's like, what the fuck is this motherfucker about to do next? Like, when Jules is wielding that knife around and cuts herself at the party, she's like, I'm fucking crazy! Like, that is kind of along the same lines as this scene, and like, how both of Malcolm and Marie in this are like, you're crazy, like, you're unhinged. And it's like, yeah, every Sam Levinson character is. Like, Jacob Elordi's character, you have no idea what he's gonna do, and even Kat and Maddie, and
But how is it that these characters surprise us and they're so unhinged and so unpredictable, but yet every single action makes sense.
Mhm.
Nothing is out of left field. Like,
Yeah.
while you can't see it coming and you're like, what the hell are they gonna do? When it does happen or they do something, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense actually. I think
Right.
that's an insane balance to have.
They're as close to real as any like television or fictional character can be. And I think again that's why this like argument between Malcolm and Marie works so well, is because I think they're both Sam Levinson is in a way. One of them is a former drug addict and the other one is a film creator. Like, they're both Sam Levinson. It's pretty much Sam Levinson arguing with himself, and he has he has had, I think, this experience before, right? He forgot to thank his wife.
Did he really?
I think so. The reason why all of his characters are so unpredictable yet like realistic is because they're as close to real as like any character can be, I think.
That actually makes me think of like Noah Baumbach, how with Marriage Story, that's basically him and his unfolding his life with his ex-wife and everything. You know what this got me thinking of too, forgetting to thank people? Jennifer Lawrence forgot. Now I'm wondering, she didn't thank Harvey Weinstein in her 2013 Oscar win for Silver Linings Playbook. And at the time, she blamed it on, like, she's like, I fell up the stairs. It was her first win. It was all very overwhelming. And like, Jennifer Lawrence is just like, she's the real person of Hollywood is how, you know, she's always been branded. And after, I remember in interviews being like, she was like, now I'm never gonna work again, thanks Hollywood, like making a joke out of all of it. And I'm not saying that this is what she did, that she like purposely left him out, but I'm wondering, it makes me wonder, did she, because it was like a well-known thing in Hollywood that Harvey Weinstein was a shitty person. And I'm like, did she know? But she knew that she could play it off and be like, oh, haha, like, I'm Jennifer Lawrence and I just forgot. Kind of makes me wonder if it was on purpose or not.
You're thinking like that maybe because right now in book club we're reading Evelyn Hugo, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is about like the way that press spin things in Hollywood and how this actress like manipulates and utilizes the public view of herself and like understands how the press works and like the way fans like visualize and are easily manipulated by like your image or whatever. But yeah, I think Jennifer Lawrence could have totally done that, and that'd be super badass of her. Reading this book right now, and also in combination with this film where Marie brings up like, that's why you didn't cast me, because then it would be our story and people would ask me and I would say, yeah, like, this was my experience, I did go through this. And then they would question your authorship of the film. You wouldn't be able to like swing your dick around and be like, I made the best fucking thing ever. It would be both of ours. And like, that's why you didn't thank me. And he's like, no, I just forgot. And it's never definitively said like, yeah, I didn't thank you because of that, and I didn't cast you because of that. Like,
but it's the thought there.
But it's
like
the
it's
thought,
planted
yeah.
enough. It's a seed. Just my last thing that I wanted to talk about quick. And we kind of already talked about how with COVID that it was, written, created, directed, everything during the time of COVID. Do you think this story would have been made without COVID?
I don't know. I think, kind of like I said before, there is clearly like an entire world built around these two characters in this argument. I could definitely see this being a film, kind of like Marriage Story, where it's an examination of a relationship, but not just in one space, where we see the time before when they first met and then the award show and like everything leading up to this argument. I could still see this story being told, but that article that we read back when this film was announced, that was like, Zendaya was like, Sam, write something that we can make during COVID where we only need like a couple people, because she wanted to get the Euphoria people working again, and she was clearly eager to continue acting. I think he had this story in the back of his mind again because of like the thing I'm pretty sure that happened with him and his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would have been told maybe in a different way.
I agree. I think I could see it being a story that would have been made into a movie eventually, but I don't think it would have ever been all in one house. I think we would have either had flashbacks to the award show, we would have had like seen the conversations with Taylor, we maybe would have had flashbacks to like to early days in their relationship. I'm happy, at least like if COVID did one thing, it gave us this movie, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can definitely see myself rewatching this again in the future.
Me too. Yeah, I think the Oscars are going to have a difficult time this year not nominating and not choosing a streaming service film for Best Picture. If that fucking Tom Hanks one wins Best Picture, I'm out on the Oscars, period. I think this is the best picture. This is the best film of the year.
Can you believe that Bridgerton didn't get any Golden Globe nominations?
No,
I mean, like, I
can't.
can, and I also can. That Emily in Paris got a bunch, and, like, Insecure, I don't think got any. And
yeah, the stuff that Sam Levinson has produced this year with the 2 Euphoria episodes and this film, I think the best things to come out of filmmaking and Hollywood during quarantine and COVID. That's a wrap on our episode covering Malcolm and Marie. Thank you so much for listening. Mm-hmm. I had a great time. I was super excited to sit down and record again. It feels like we haven't recorded in so long.
Make sure that if you are listening to us on Spotify, that you follow us, and that way we will appear on your homepage every Monday when new episodes come out. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you go to our homepage on that as well, and that you subscribe and give us a rating and review. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell. Oh, check out our TikTok at Popcorn Chats Pod. All of Katie and I's other info is in the bio of each episode, so you can check that out.
Thank you guys for listening.
Alrighty.
We love you.
Lilas.
Lilas. Beach.